Welcome to Coffee and Geography, where my guests and I geek out about the world and everything on it, discovering that we are all geographers in some way, shape or form. I'm your host, Kit, and my pronouns are they, them or she, her. So settle down with a brew, hit that subscribe or follow button, and enjoy the listen. Hello everybody and welcome to Coffee and Geography. We're here with the second episode of 2023 of season 3, and I have with me someone I've been trying to encourage politely to come on the podcast, and finally she's here, Akiko Tomitaka. Hello Akiko.
Hello, how are things, Kit?
They're doing very, very well. So at the time that people are listening, they're probably well over we're well into January. They've already broken their New Year's resolutions, but we are recording this right off the back of Christmas Day. So it's the 27th, I think we're recording this. And
I thought it was going to be on the 28th, and we nearly missed each other tonight, didn't we, Kit?
We did indeed. But of course, that's just the Christmas foggy brain, everybody, isn't it? And we were just talking before we recorded about how, you eat too much of the stuff that you don't usually eat anyway. Like, I'm not a chocolate person, but I stuffed myself too much chocolate already. So
Same here.
Gone to my brain. So I'm a bit gooey as well. So to introduce Akiko, everybody. So Akiko is a geographer, a global citizen, and a yogi. And you can work out when Akiko was born, because this is roughly the same as me. Born at 343.97 parts per million. If you know what that is, you know what that is. Akiko says that she's been made to feel very welcome in the UK, especially by the people of Glasgow. However, no matter how well she integrates into her adopted community, she knows she's different and unique, which is exactly why I have her on the podcast. Pupils are naturally curious about her, and this makes it a perfect platform for her to teach geography. The pupils in her care will leave the school with a better understanding of how that world works and leave with the depth and breadth of knowledge, understanding and skills which open the doors to fulfil their ambitions to serve others. That is, a geographer's aim, through and through, Akiko.
It sounds a bit pretentious, eh? I remember writing that.
Yeah. No, it's a lovely intro. So, you're in Glasgow and you've used the term adopted community. So how long have you been in Glasgow then? And where have you originated from if you say that's your adopted community?
So this is my 16th year in my current school, and I did probation and teacher training years before that. So 18 years in dear old Glasgow, and it's been just a nice place. People are friendly, they're funny, they're genuinely just amazing folks to be with. Children are even funnier, and it's just one of those things that I've just thought, just the way of living is so genuine and so pure, and it's just so enjoyable to be here. I'm originally from Japan. My mum and dad are Japanese, and I still carry a Japanese passport because the Japanese government will allow me to have dual nationality. I could go for the British citizenship. I could get the British passport, but if I do go for it, I would have to drop the Japanese one. And the last time I checked, Japanese passports are better than the British passport when it comes to travel. So I thought, you know what, let's not bother with that.
Unfortunately so, since Brexit, I would say that's probably true.
So that's why I will keep my original national identity, but very much, very much integrated into my Glaswegian and my Glasgow community because of just the nice people we have around here.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of affection for the Scots. One of my best friends is Scottish. I mean, he lives in the rival city of, just outside of Edinburgh. So hello, Clive. I need to get Clive on the podcast because I think that'd be amazing. And lots of friends, it's from Scotland. But I do have an old family connection back to Japan, which I will get back to in a minute. But first of all, before I forget, because I always forget to do this at the start of the podcast, is what you're drinking, because it's called Coffee and Geography. So you got a drink with you, Akiko? What are you drinking?
Yes, it's Union Coffee from Kilimanjaro, Tanzania. It is a organic coffee blend from a cooperative. I think they've been a cooperative, fair trade, etc. since early 1990s, maybe 92 and 93. I think they serve 600 150,000 farmers
Wow.
in the Kilimanjaro slope area, which is amazing. The number might be higher now, but that seems to be the number that was branded about a few years back.
Wow.
And because of the gorgeous terrain, the geography, the soil, and the climate, the Arabica coffee beans in this part of the world, Moshi, Tanzania is absolutely delicious. So you can get it from, I think it's just called Union Coffee.
Wow.
You can get it from most places online as well as supermarkets. Now it's super popular.
Yeah. Now that is a geographer's answer, isn't it? To what are you drinking? I love
Well,
it.
I grew up in Moshi, the town where this coffee is grown in. So
Really?
when I can, I try to get my mitts on this particular coffee. Yes,
Ah,
so since from about age 3 to 16, I was living free and wild in East Africa.
wow. Oh my goodness. This is so cool. I mean, this is really, really just goes to show kind of like the amount of international, connectivity we've got there. You're from Japan, you're now living in Glasgow, you're speaking to an English person, but you also spend a bit of time in Tanzania as well. I mean, wow, I'm pretty envious.
It's nice in Tanzania this time of the year. I mean, we should all run away to Moshi and go for a like 10-day safari in those national parks. It's just glorious and it's
Hmm.
just such a nice experience. So if it's ever one of those bucket list things to do, add this one. Go to Moshi, Tanzania for the great coffee, lovely warm people, but also nice
Mm.
diversity of animals and all the other gorgeous stuff.
Yeah, I've only been to two African nations, so I've been to South Africa and I've been to Malawi, and I've two of my best experiences of my life, and like not just the scenery or anything like that, but the people. I really fell in love with the people, especially in Malawi, and yeah, it's and I really strongly recommend that people listen back to last season's chat when I spoke to one of my good friends, Francis and Bakati from Malawi, and you can get the sense of our relationship through that discussion, that really warm sibling-like relationship that we have, and it's so beautiful. I'm going to ask you a really tricky question then, because I asked this question of most people on the podcast. Um, so, with regards to Japan, the United Kingdom, and Tanzania, is there anything that you feel, apart from yourself, of course, because you're the link in person between those three things, but is there anything that you would say that these places have more in common than people realize? Apart from the fact that they probably all drink coffee in those three areas, and Akiko has lived in those three areas.
Of course, I mean, coffee is the second most traded commodity around the world, and most
Mm,
of us adults are hooked on it. When I used to teach a unit on Japan in schools in Glasgow, I would always start with the similarities between Scotland and Japan. It was just an easy way in to the children's minds, and we would always start off with both are island countries, island nations nestled right next to a significant continental country slash power. And,
mm.
it's a very much of a very an island nation mentality of once upon a time we were this, but today we are that. There is that sentiment in, I think, both Britain and Japan. And when it comes to Tanzania and Japan when Tanzania when I grew up in the late 80s and the 90s was the second poorest country in the world. And just after Afghanistan, I believe. And
Mm.
Japan back in the day was the second richest country in the world, just after USA. Now we have fallen to the third once China overtook Japan. But because of this second poorest and second richest gap that I had, and I was aware of this because of my father teaching me about this. I know it's not the similarity, but the great differences between the two countries, it made me appreciate more of what I had in Tanzania and more what I had in Japan. And this sense of
Right.
place and connection and people were magnified because of this silly statistic that, one place was the second poorest and one place was the second richest. But when it comes to all three countries joined together, I can only say that we speak enough English between the three countries. And then, of course, that our countries are not super duper amazing at football. Tanzania never gets anywhere. Japan just about, and England just did better, but Scotland doesn't. And it's one of those things that when I go to Tanzania and have the pleasure of walking around my old neighborhood, there will be street vendors who are trying to sell Tanzanian national team's shirts, and I'm like, but you guys are rubbish. Why would I buy? Why would I buy your tops? But I'm not a great football fan or follower, but just being after the World Cup, it's obviously, very much within our minds that
Yes.
it brings people together like nothing else. So I
Yeah.
suppose there's a little bit of we suck at football equally as the mutual ground of all three countries.
Well, Japan did really, really well in the World Cup as well. What did they beat Germany and Spain? I think I'm right in thinking.
And then
Uh,
we got knocked out by Croatia or somebody like that.
yeah.
But you know what we are best at, the Japanese, when it comes to football, is we tidy up the stadium afterwards.
Yes. Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up because that was incredible, and it was just like, and everybody like started to like love the Japanese team and the Japanese fans because of the way that they treated their hosts with respect and the way that they treated the stadium with respect. And it was wonderful. I mean, I hardly watched any of the football on the TV because it was my personal protest of the World Cup being held in Qatar, so I listened to it on the radio mostly. But yeah, when I got to see that footage of after the Japan games of just the fans staying behind and clearing up and tidying up and going around with plastic, they're bringing their own plastic bags to put their rubbish in. It was so cool, and I was like, yes, this is we should take this example going forward. I mean, is that base? Is it just because they think that's the polite thing to do? Is that a part of uh, Japanese culture that you just tidy up after yourself? I mean, where does that come from, if anywhere?
I think it's drilled into us since we're in our prep and primary school. We are told to clean our own classroom. We serve our own classmates lunch, and we
Nice.
do lots of these things ourselves. When I was in primary school in Japan, just for the 3 years between P3 and P6, I remember having to learn how to sweep and mop and properly clean the classroom. And we didn't see any cleaners or janitors. It was all done by the kids
Hmm.
and their main classroom teacher. So we're told how important it is to look after one's surrounding out of respect. And I think because it's drilled into you since your primary school age, it's unthinkable for most people in Japan to say litter on the ground or not tidy up after oneself in places like a stadium. But it just makes us Japanese come across as goody goodies around the world stage. It's just like, yeah, we brought our own plastic bag, guys, and look, this is also biodegradable. And it's like, yeah, I know we're good people, but do we need to make a show of it every time we
Oh,
go around the world? But it's nice because the news outlets pick those stories up,
yeah.
and inevitably my pupils in my classroom in Glasgow will tell me about it, and I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm always telling yous off. Glasgow pronoun of you use
Use.
use use off for littering in my classroom.
I just think it's great. And so coming back to what I was saying about this old family connection. So when I was in secondary school myself, my aunt, my mum's twin sister, was living in Japan, in Osaka, and she was a PhD student out there at the Osaka University, looking at cancer cells and biological T cells and stuff like that. And so that was quite cool. And then my mum and dad, I fortunately didn't get to visit Japan, but my mum and dad did, and they were talking about all these things about the courtesy, the politeness, how you have to take your shoes off before you go in, and then you can use these indoor slippers before you go in, and things like that. And it was really, really cool. So yeah, and in my geography classroom, I actually found my old geography exercise books when I was going through my stuff a few weeks ago, and I found my year 9 book where I did a whole project about Japan. And my auntie Susan had sent through from Japan all this stuff for me to use, um, and that was really, really sweet. And I remember this time because it was, I think this was the year after the Great Hanshin earthquake in
1998,
95.
1989. Yeah. Oh, 95, it's
Yeah,
Kobe.
Kobe. Yeah, Yeah, Kobe. So, and because my aunt was in Osaka, I mean, Osaka was what, only 20 kilometers from Kobe. So she really felt that earthquake. Um, so yeah, it's that's my little connection to Japan. I mean, apart from my aunt Susan living there and being a massive fan of Studio Ghibli, I that's the connection of Japan I have.
Right. I know this is your show and you're meant to be interviewing me, but I'm going to ask you a question.
Go on
So,
then.
if you could pick a character in Studio Ghibli, who would you be and why?
Oh,
Oh, is this off? Is this off the topic?
no, no, I love it when this happens. It might be quote unquote my show, but the guests make the show. Oh my goodness, I've gone backwards and forward. Okay, there are three particular characters I love the most, but I would say Nausicaa in Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind, one of the very, very, very first.
One of the earliest,
Yeah.
and Kaze no Tani no Nausicaa in
Mm.
Japanese. Kaze no Tani, Valley of the Wind. Kaze no Tani no
Oh.
Nausicaa. She's a sweet character.
Because she's very strong. She's an environmentalist. You know, she's always talking about how the connection with nature is what's going to help humans and not to burn down the forest, and talking to the ohm and things like that. And I don't know, I've always wanted to do cosplay as Arietti. So
It goes with your hair color.
yeah, because I have red hair,
Yeah.
and I have actually got this really beautiful red dress which could work for that costume. And so all I need to do is find one of those giant clothes pegs things for my hair, and you know,
I'm
so
sure you can find those on Alibaba or somewhere. You
yeah.
know, the world is your oyster.
Yeah, oh yeah, very true. But yeah, I mean, the trouble is, well, it's a good problem, not a bad problem. The good thing about Studio Ghibli is that there's so many strong female characters, um, and it's Miyazaki, I think, was one of the very, very early kind of like film feminists who would like bring in the female character and environmentalists. So that's probably why I love Studio Ghibli so much, was because they're very feminist and they're very environmental. Um, so yeah, it's you can't really ask me to say which is my favorite character, which is my favorite movie, because it really depends on the mood I'm in.
Well, if you haven't watched this recently, you should rewatch Kiki's Delivery
Yes.
because that she is me. It's like, I'm gonna be a witch independent at age 14. Bye, mom and dad. And that was 1989 when that film came out. I must have been an
Wow.
impressionable age because I would have been 7, 8, that kind of
Yeah.
age, and then I must have just taken everything from it literally and just run with it. And I do have black cat, two black cats, pretending I am Kiki. And I am married to a speckly boy with glasses on, and he's my Tombo.
I'm just picturing it all right now.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so sweet. I'm just actually looking around at the moment. I mean, because all the Christmas detritus is still all over the place. I'm trying to find where my we have my wife did crocheted Totoros. That's what I was trying to look around for. But
Totoro.
yeah, I have to show you afterwards when we finish recording. And then we've got soot spirits as well. Who else have we? Yeah,
Makurokurosuke. Those
that's it.
black fluffy
Yeah,
things. Yeah,
or
they're
soot
called
sprite.
Makurokuroskes. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, this is so cool. So I'm geeking out here, everybody. So
Bye. It's nice to be able to say Japanese words.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's so. And there was this one person who I used to go to university with, who used to live on the same dormitory as me, who like had a Japanese girlfriend and was full on all this kind of stuff, anime. And I was, at the time, I was a bit skeptical, and I feel a bit sad now, because I'm like, I could have got into this so much earlier than I did, but it wasn't really until I had kids myself that I really started to get into it all. So
Well,
catching up
there's
for lost time.
always time to visit Japan. And now that the Japanese yen is on its knees, it's so much cheaper. Actually, it is to go to Japan, have a really good visit. I've been watching several YouTube clips about all this visitors, tourists coming back to the country, and
Mm.
how cheap it is compared to pre-pandemic. It's 20 to 30% cheaper in some places for accommodation and food, etc. So I can't wait for myself to visit in April.
Yeah.
And I'm also taking a group of my pupils
Oh
in
wow.
October next year, October 2023. Part of me is like, I can't wait to show them all my, the places and teach them Japanese. And the other part of me is like, are you nuts? Are you nuts taking 30 wains, 30 kids?
No, no. Oh, folks, oh, this is so incredible because folks will know, having listened to an episode previously, is that I took students to the United States of America, to the Yellowstone National Park area because my family, my wife's family, has a place near there, and it was the best thing I ever did. It was the best thing I ever did. And so, folks, if it's, I can't remember what episode number it is, but in season 1, I spoke to 5 students that I took to the United States of America: Tom, Nathan, Emma, Roanna, there was the person who I'm forgetting is going to kill me now, but yeah. And if you listen back to that, you will get the sense of how amazed that they were from that trip, and basically how much it's going to stay for them for the rest of their life. So I can tell you now, Akiko, that your students are going to remember that for the rest of their life. So
I've done lots of
incredible.
international trips with pupils in the last 16 years that I've been in this school, and it's always absolutely amazing experience, but so totally devastatingly tiring as well
It
at the same
so
time.
is. Yeah.
And it's worth it. It's worth it for every single reaction I get from the pupils from
Yeah.
whichever country or community we visit, and we're
Yeah.
lucky enough to do that. So yes, I'm looking forward to my October trip to
Oh,
Tokyo and Kyoto with the children, with the pupils.
okay. Nice. So is the Tokyo area, is that where you're from?
So my mom and dad are originally from the southern island of Kyushu.
Oh, okay.
And
Yep.
it's a classic Japanese post-war story of, you get yourself educated and you come out to the big city, and then you have your life. So my mom and my dad, they must have left their Kyushu small towns and villages and came up to Tokyo, or at least towards the Kanto area.
Mm.
So we don't have any family ties or links in Tokyo area apart from my parents, and my two sisters live there.
Yeah.
It's not even Tokyo proper. It's not part of the 23 wards or Niju Sanku of Tokyo. It's just outside of Tokyo in a place called Omiya. It's like East Kilbride compared to where Glasgow is. It's like a small town outside
Okay.
of the
Yeah.
bigger place. So that's where my folks are living, but we don't have any obvious family ties in Tokyo, just the fact that we're just there.
Yeah.
But Kyushu in Japan is a magical place. If you like Totoro, if you go to somewhere like Takachiho in Kyushu, it's like Totoro country. It's Sen to Chihiro no Kamigakushi. It's the same as all those beautiful countryside with
Nice.
green tunnels, with spiritual references to nature, and that's where you want to go, Kyushu.
Mm. Yeah, and of course, so folks, if you're wondering, so that's the Southern Island, and that's where Nagasaki is, I believe, and also with the Studio Ghibli link, that's where the settlement of and the prefecture of Miyazaki is. So, which is interesting, since the name is of the creator of a lot of these movies is, I've forgotten his first name though, something Miyazaki. Oh,
I will get to that.
yes. It's just flown off the top of my head a minute ago. But yes, I mean, it's because Japan is a really big country. A lot of people don't realize that. So, I mean, that must be, I'm just trying to think, between Tokyo and Kyushu, that must be 500, 600 kilometers.
Yeah, plus it's obviously easier to fly and quicker to fly.
I can
But
imagine.
if you're going to Kyoto, it's actually better to take the bullet trains,
Yes.
just so that you don't have to do all the airport security and stuff. 2.5 hours between Tokyo and Kyoto on the bullet train, and I can't wait to use that service again because things actually work in Japan. The rail services, the timetable, it's clean. It's not like costing you an arm and leg.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at the current time, rail strikes as well. So, but yeah, I mean, I would love to go on the bullet train. I mean, So does it really get up to, was it 200 and something miles an hour? That's just
Yeah,
crazy.
I think they're still developing the technology further. They're always tinkering with the shape, the size, the
Mm.
engine, etc., to have the next fastest service rather than the next fastest record. It's the service that matters in terms of consistency of how they can provide it. And they also have, rather than the fastest service in Japan, these days they tend to do loads of luxury train services, so that you can have a a bit more gentler experience of being on the train, but the interior of the carriages are done up in such splendor that you would want to spend those extra times
Mm.
in traveling on rail. So yeah, rail travel in Japan is much recommended. So if you ever get to Japan, try it out. It's amazing.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. So yeah, I mean my wife did go to college with someone who's now living in Japan, so we might have to use that connection, to get out there one day. That'll be
Yeah.
oh
Yeah, it's nothing better than visiting friends and family, especially when you go to far flung places
yes.
and you just need somebody to show you around and say, this is the list of food you definitely want to try, or whatever it might be. And Studio Ghibli has just opened a second theme park. They had a they had a smaller theme park, but now I think they've actually opened a really big one. They judging by the amount of YouTube traffic that was on about this, I think it was some point in October or November that it finally opened. So yeah, check it out. And I can't wait
Oh.
to visit.
Oh my goodness me. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay, put
Here
it on your
Ghib,
bucket list.
Ghibli Park. Oh my goodness me. Yeah.
There's two of them.
This one
This
is massive. This is, I don't know if this is the main one or the smaller one, but this one is not too far from. Oh, it's on the Nagoya?
Yeah, the Nagoya one would be the much bigger one, and that's the newer one. And then the one that's within Tokyo is the original smaller one. And
Oh, I
I've
see.
been to the original smaller one, and it's just so charming. It's just lovely. Everything
Yeah.
is just makes your heart sing and just smile with joy because of such beautiful and gentle storylines with strong moral undercurrent of everything. And
Yeah.
it's a good joyous experience.
Right. That's it. Something that's added to the bucket list. And then I can go dressed as Arietti. Yes.
Yes, I need to see pictures. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's a promise. You've heard it here, everybody. Pinky promise between me and Akiko there.
Yep.
So a lot of things that we're talking about is, a lot of this global stuff and global connection. And a lot of the thing, what you put here, that one of the things that you really, really find important to talk about and you enjoy talking about in your teaching is global citizenship. Um, you yourself, you embody what is a global citizen, having all of the life experience that you have. But when you're talking to your students, how do you express the importance of global citizenship to them? Like, what is the kind of like the crux of the lesson for you to say why we all should be global citizens?
I think every lesson is different depending on the audience or the atmosphere that
Mm.
I have with the class. But it's important in a sense because you need to remain competitive as a citizen of the world when so many people from all around the world have got almost the exact same qualification. And if you don't have the wits about it, you're just kind of standing on the shoulders of your past ancestors, your giants of your country. And then if you don't know that other people exist around the world who are hungrier than you are for success and progress, you are going to miss out. So Scotland has had the lucky thing of inventing almost everything in the modern world, but it has had a significant post-industrial slump, and it has kind of lost its funk about it. And some places you go within United Kingdom at large, there are communities that seem to have been slightly forgotten in the more
Mm.
recent progress, and the mentality is quite closed. Like they're very in tune with the community, they'll help each other out, and that's a beautiful lesson on its own. But they're not always aware or willing to discuss about international happenings and issues. And because I do have a unique identity, my face is different, my name is different, my background story is different, I find it really easy to engage in pupils with any of these global issues, because global issues are, in reality, every single one of them is a local issue, and you just have to say, here's a
Mm.
mirror, and if you can't deal with what you see in the mirror, you can't really make progress of it. So it could be something, fundamental but simple, like children's rights. That's so important within this country as well as all the other countries in the world. It could be other things that are more related to geography, like climate change. But
Mm.
I tried to teach it from the local angle as well as the international global angle, to say some things are universally affecting us, but and the impact is not always equal because of the muscle that your country may or may not have to deal and
Yeah.
adapt with these things. And these conversations are becoming more prominent in our schools and our education system. And I'm just glad to be one of the voices that, or at least one of the people and faces kids will seek out to have a dialogue about it. And I don't always have the answers, but my pupils know I don't have all the answers. So we're very gracious towards each other when we're having these discussions. And,
Mm.
and I think it's super important to be aware of internationalism, globalism, so that your life is richer. That's the end of it. Your life is so much richer once you embrace of others out
Yeah.
there, and you try to understand where and how they have come to be in the story, and how you fit into their story, or how you fit into your greater surrounding. And the greater surrounding is all geography, isn't that right, Kit? And then
No
the
argument here.
and then the fact that we add the dimension of people and places from other parts of the world is just
Mm.
so much interesting, and also important, I think, to keep on having conversations and keep on discovering and keep on giving each other grace to discover some of these things.
Hi folks, a chance for you to recharge your brew, but also a polite prod to remind you that it's so easy to support this podcast. Simply liking, sharing, rating and reviewing means that it will get on more people's radar. Also, there are a few links down in the description which may be of mutual benefit. Please do check them out. Yeah, and it's another C, isn't it? It's not just competition, it's also cooperation. And can you imagine, like, there is so much untapped potential in the human race, I think, and with more cooperation and compassion and connection between us, I truly and genuinely believe there is nothing we can't achieve as a human race, because you pick up creativity and innovation from where you least likely to find it. And one of the podcasts I love to listen to is Digital Planet from the BBC, and one of the reasons why I love that is because they do have a lot of stories from other nations, African countries and Asian nations, where they talk about such the innovation and the creativities that are coming out of those countries to overcome certain obstacles. And like, it just goes to show, it's like, wow, I never would have thought that. And everyone's got their own unique experience and lived experience and all that kind of stuff. And then if you were to listen to each other, because everyone's got that unique experience, and then you say, oh, okay, so yeah, that experience plus this idea plus your idea plus this culture, this background, if we put those things together, wow, we've got a solution to a problem we never thought we could solve. And and that to me is part of what being a global citizen is working together to overcome problems that we may not have a solution for if we just was in isolation.
I totally agree. And because of the time that we are living in, it's so important to concentrate on the potential and the positives.
Yes.
Because, like you would know, that young people, our pupils, have got higher anxiety when it comes to ecological anxiety
Yep.
because of how we are currently having a conversation about it. And so I think there was a film that came out in 2019. It's an Australian film that came out in 2019 called 2040.
Mm.
And Damon Gamo. I need to look up his pronunciation, but it's a story in which his daughter grows up, and it's year 2040, and how the world has managed to progress and overcome and adapt and manage the climate change. and one of the story is a microgrid system in Bangladesh. And the story, the whole point of the film is the dad, the producer of the film, has to mention things that are currently true, and the technology exists. So it can't be totally fictional. But if these technologies and potential are harnessed from all around the world, including the microgrid system in Bangladesh, we could manage and overcome and adapt to the changing climate that we are currently facing. It's a very, very positive story. And I try to kind of channel that kind of ideas to my classes when we are discussing about climate change or issues surrounding environment. And then I will also try to bring that the answers do not all come from the Western countries. I mean, look at the system in Bangladesh, and kids are
Yes.
genuinely surprised that this is a system that works, and they are genuinely also tickled that, it's there, and how come we haven't harnessed it yet?
Yeah.
And it's just this amazement, and we haven't taken it on further. So I think it's important where we can, where we are in a privileged position to tell stories to children, and that I become the conduit or the connector to say, this is happening here and this is happening there, and then you are right in the middle of this story, and this is how you can connect it. And then it so happens that I think my gift isn't really to teach geography or teach global citizenship. I think I'm just a good storyteller in a way that I make really complicated issues more manageable to age appropriateness, and I'm able to add some stories to go with, and characters and names and places, because that's important.
Yeah.
And kids like that. And then what's funny is they've gone home to tell some of these stories to their mums and dads, and I don't usually hear about any of this, but occasionally at parents' night, a parent will reach out towards the end of the parents' night interview and say, oh, by the way, my child came home and said this to us or said that to us, and I believe that was taught in your international education, the global citizenship class, or in your geography class. And it really makes my heart sing when that feedback comes back, and it's unsolicited feedback, and it somehow makes this arc and then comes back to you, and it's like, oh, that's really nice that you were talking about me in your car. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the joy of being able to tell a story that is relevant of our time and connects people and makes things more manageable. And yeah,
I think
it's a joy.
I think quite a few people listening have got a bit of a warm glow after hearing that, to be honest, because we do have a lot of educators, a lot of geography educators listening, and I think they can. Yeah, and I think the way that you said that was so lovely. I mean, I used to think of it as almost like storytelling, and I love the way that you put it. It's like, rather than being a teacher or anything like that, I'm just someone who makes connections, who can formulate connections, be a conduit for others, and to make links between one thing and another. And yeah, I mean, that is such a lovely way to put it, because and then I always love telling things through stories, and this I used to teach drama as well as geography, so my second subject was drama, and I would try and use as many as that to kind of like tell geographical stories or issues through drama. And it was just, yeah, they were my best lessons. And then getting the kids to, make those connections and to come up with their own facets and parts of the story as well, so they can put their own context into it. It's just
Do you
lovely.
ever do you ever see your stories come back to you through exam papers? Because I have. I have, or prelim papers, mock exams, and
Mm.
I'm marking them, and then there's my story coming back. And I do say to the pupils when I'm giving back their papers, I say, I need to be really careful what I say in front of you, because the stories, but they have a really big, broad smile and say, well, that's the way I remember things, is
Yeah.
through those stories. And I think that's how it makes, could it be pod soil, driest bit of the biosphere, makes it a little bit more palatable to remember, because you've got a story or something that you
Yes.
hooked on it, or whatever it is. And I think I see about 200 pupils throughout the week, 200 individuals throughout my average week. And to think some of my stories might be landing in them and then taking some kind of germination, or maybe some of them
Yeah.
is just patched right away, but it's taking some kind of impact, not maybe immediately, but mid to long term. it's also a nice way of looking at what education and teaching and all this facilitating learning is,
Mm,
because the teaching world, this profession has gone through so much change, and currently lots of people may be feeling tired or burnt out, or not feeling the love that they originally joined the profession
yes.
for. But I would like to just say, there's no other feeling in the world that really beats it, when your stories come back to you in one way or another, or your stories take root and kids act on it later on, much later on in their lives. And I'm in a lucky position that after staying at school for 16 years, some of my very much former pupils are now good grown adults, and they come back and tell me
Yeah.
what they are doing in their important grown up lives. And it does involve a lot of geography and a lot of internationalism and global citizenship, which it just makes me really happy.
Yes. Oh no, I definitely echo what you just said there. Um, we'll move on, and I'm gonna spill the beans with you now, Akiko, which is a very funny euphemism to kind of you to tell us something that other folks may not know. I'm gonna let you pick really, because I want you to picture this. So let's have a little bit of a story-ish kind of approach to this, yeah. So I want you to picture this. So you've you wake up, and there's the sunbeams are coming through the crack of your curtains, okay, and then you open up those curtains, and you just see hills and greenery all over the place, because you're in your hobbit hole. Right, so everything looks green, and everybody's living in these like Hobbiton from Lord of the Rings kind of thing. And you look around your room, it's like you put on your slippers, and you have a walk around, you think, right, should I put on a little music and do a bit of dancing, maybe a bit of ballet, or maybe are you going to go over to the piano, or maybe on the other corner of your room where you've got your sewing table, or maybe it's such a bright sunny warm day already, you might want to go outside and do a bit of yoga in the garden or something. So I'm doing a lot of exposition here, because I've listed all the things that you like to kind of do as a hobby. Um, so I'm going to let you pick up from what would you like to do first, Akiko? You get up on that bright sunny day, and you're in your hobbit hole, and you've got all these things. You go, oh, I fancy, I don't know, jumping on the piano, getting out, doing some gardening. I'm going to do a yoga stretch first. What would you do first thing?
Gosh, the reality is I haven't played the piano in quite a long time. I do have a clavinova, full piano-sized clavinova,
Mm.
just in the next hall. Um, but I don't practice as nearly as much as I used to. I used to do maybe 2, 3 hours when I was at university, when I was still actively doing music through my music degree. So I feel like, if my mother is listening, I feel like I would say I'll brew myself a good fair trade coffee and get myself on that clavinova, and bang out some scales and arpeggios just to please her. Um, but if I'm playing the piano, it's most likely to be Disney tunes, or something that I can sight read relatively easily.
Mm.
And recently, I was I think I was going to a school dance in the evening, but I didn't want to go home, so I just stayed in school and went into the hall to use the big grand piano that we have. I think it's a Yamaha grand piano, and I was just so happy to spend 2 hours just flicking through musics that you can find on iPad apps, and then just play a sight read as much as possible from, it could be your Bach pieces or your Mozarts, or all the way to, again, the Disney pieces or Nora Jones or whatever, those things. It was just 2 hours passed so quickly, so I feel like I should reconnect back to going to piano again,
Oh.
because it's never left my system. It's almost like a muscular thing that I remember. So when I sit by the instrument, it doesn't matter, it's been 2 years or however many months I haven't touched it,
Mm.
I am able to pick up the sight read, and within a couple of goes I can play what I used to play. So I should probably count myself lucky that my muscles remember so much of
Mm.
it. But as we get older, I believe I believe yoga is so much more important to our body. So yeah, I
Yes.
probably should go back outside to do some yoga on my deck overlooking south side of Glasgow. It's a very pretty view, Kit. So if you're ever up in Glasgow and you want to see this deck and do some yoga with me, you know you've got an invite to
Yes.
my house, or as we say in Glasgow, my gaff. Come over to my down to my house. That would be lovely. But yeah, I do have loads and loads of hobbies. It keeps me busy and fulfilled and content. Like you said, you know, I've got my sewing machine, and I've made, just like lots of other people during the pandemic, I made so many of the masks. I just had to watch a couple of YouTube instructions, and I was like, let's go, let's make scarves. And that was me happy, just bothering myself away. And I'll fling a scarf to anybody who wanted one. Because in the early days of pandemic, do you remember people didn't know how to get one? And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, it's not Japan. In Japan, the first sniffle that you get of a cold, you put your mask on. You've been told to do that since you're taught, you know, since you're
Hmm.
a wee thing. But in this country, we don't. We just, you know, spread it around like
Yeah.
it's a present. Here, take some of my germs, makes you stronger. So when the first signs of mask wearing came in, I did make, I don't know, 200 plus masks, and
Wow.
I left piles of them in schools, and I've seen kids wearing my masks in the early days of COVID. It was quite nice.
Oh, I love that. I'm so gonna take you up on that invite, because I've said this to you, Akiko, before. Oh, when we've been chatting on Twitter, it's like I need to get myself back into yoga. Like, I was doing it regularly, you know, at least once a week, taught with a yogi, and then, you know, doing a little bit at home before going to bed and stuff like that. And it's just like, it's just one of those things. When you get out of the habit, it's so difficult to get back into the habit. So yeah, I think what I'm going to need to do, I'm going to need to um, yeah, plan next time I plan and visit up to Scotland. I'm going to have to get myself going. So when we actually do that yoga on a deck, I'm not so stiff. I can actually maybe. I was getting to the stage where I was about to do downward facing dog with my heels on the floor, but then we moved house, and we didn't moved away from where we were doing yoga, and then yeah, so but oh, yeah.
So one of my other recent things that I got into is making spreadsheets for habit trackers and whatever. And it's so
Oh.
nice to actually track your anything, you know, including your morning yoga or meditation. And I know we're in the daft days right now between Christmas and New Year, and we have, you know, our license to do very little right now. But I am going to get back into keeping an actual track of my, not just my yoga, but various habits, hopefully installing more positive habits
Mm.
as I cross into my latter half of my middle age. Because I think I also said, you know, I approximately have 2,000 weekends left, because
Oh
that's
my
just the normal.
goodness.
That is the normal of a human life, is you've got 4,000 weekends. And then because I'm 40, and then life expectancy, you know, let's face it, is about 80 something. So, you know, I'm like about halfway through that. And so every time I think of it that way, I'm like, it's not like I've got unlimited time.
Mm.
So I best, you know, make the use of it, but also be kind to myself. Some days I can't, you know, check all the habits and be happy. But at some point, I think it's nice to have yoga and
Yes.
meditation and those things that you just check in with yourself. And I just recently in November started doing a pupils yoga class at school. So Wednesday afternoon, I've got about 20 girls coming to see me
Nice.
in a big hall, and I take them through the yoga routine, and they're giggly and they're on the phones when they come in. But as soon as I start doing the yoga breath and meditation, they go into the zone. It's amazing to see, you know, 20 girls from age 15 to 17 just doing exactly what I tell them to do without any question. And I also do a 15 minutes at the end of yoga nidra. which is
Yep.
meditation nidra. It's just a beautiful way to look after yourself.
Yeah.
And my girls in yoga class absolutely love it. Some of them come to yoga because they know that I'm going to do yoga nidra,
Nidra. Yeah.
and they're very respectful for other people's needs. Like, you don't see a single phone flickering at that point. Nobody is, chatting or trying to be silly. Everybody's trying to just tune back in to their breath and just be good to themselves. So yeah, I think yoga is overall a good thing. It's a plus.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you were to recommend anybody who's like, I just need to get myself back in habit, but what can I do for just 1 or 2 minutes would be like the best thing for me to get back into habit? Because I would say, like, doing the sun salute for maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and then doing it for 2 minutes, and then doing it for 5 minutes, and then, that would be a way for me probably to get back into habit. But what would you say to someone who says, would it just be simply just stretching to get themselves into the habit just before bed and getting out of bed, and then they move on to a certain move? What yoga position would you recommend?
So I I learned I was trained under seasonal yoga. So it's better to kind of tune into the season that you are experiencing. Now that could be the actual, geographical season outside of your house, or it could be a season that you're going through in your life. You're going through a particular spell, whichever way you interpret it. You should tune into the seasons, plural, of your physical and your personal life. And nothing beats a good cat cow movement of spine rolling and then
Yeah.
going into child pose, and it's just playing around with your spine, just so that your spinal liquid, your fluid, and your energy is flowing as best as you can. And usually, if you're teachers, your shoulders and your back are quite stiff because of
Yeah.
the way we carry ourselves and we sit and how we conduct ourselves most of the time. It's nice to do the shoulder rolls to the side. So there's lots you can do, but if you're just looking for a way in, if you just do the first 5-10 minutes of the Ashtanga primary series, if you're relatively mobile, that's a good way to build up, because Ashtanga can go on for 45 to an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. So if you just build up 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then just go, right, today I got as far as this, and then I'm going to be very happy that I got it. And other days, because of the seasons of your life you're in, you might do slightly less, and that's okay as well. So there's so many good yogis and yoginis on the internet now. I don't think
Yeah. Yeah.
you'd be stuck for finding something that suits you on the day that you decide to do it.
Yeah. Very good sound advice. Right. Okay. I am motivated. I promise. I got to report back to you, and I'll say, I've actually been getting this far, Akiko, and you'll be proud of me.
I'll give you my habit tracker and you can have a play with
Oh, yes,
it.
please. That'd be great. Oh, well, Akiko, it's sad to say we're going to bring the conversation to a close now. It's been so lovely speaking to you, but we should finish off with one more thing now, and the connection to make between all the guests of We Are All Geographers. So last week I spoke to Dan Hall, who kicked us off for season 1, and he was given the word heat wave because the last time I had an episode, it was back in the summer when we was having those 40-degree temperatures, which was ridiculous. So Dan, at this time of year, had to do the word heat wave, which was bizarre, but he did it really well. He's a geographer himself. Dan's gone seasonal with you, Akiko, and he wants you to talk about the word Christmas for 30 seconds. And we've talked a lot about Christmas throughout the whole episode, but basically you've just got to roll off the tongue for 30 seconds. And if you can make it geographical connections with Christmas, that's a bonus. Or you can just talk about Christmas for 30 seconds. So whenever you're ready, you can spiel about the word Christmas, Akiko.
Chris, so in Japan, we do have a secular practice of Christmas only to worship at the altar of shopping. And it's also very popular with young family, with children, or with couples. And they usually finish by going to KFC to have their Christmas dinner. And I tried to sell this idea to my Scottish family in East Kilbride to say, listen, I'll get you all a bucket each. Can we please skip the turkey? And can I just give you the KFC? And
Nice.
they said, no, no, absolutely no way. And so I did have the nicest turkey that we had in a house. And I wish more people would just embrace the KFC culture at Christmas. There would be no burnt ovens. There's nobody cross. Everybody's happy, and you don't have to worry about anything. And Christmas is one of those times that you shouldn't have to spend all your time in the kitchen. So
True.
yeah,
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
to KFC, guys.
Yeah, I'll let you go on for more than 30 seconds there because it's funny you say that because I was listening when the kids are in the car. I sometimes put on the digital radio channel Fun Kids for them to listen to, and they had a factoid on there, and they said, "Oh, which of these is true? That a Christmas tradition in Mexico is you go to McDonald's, or is it a Christmas tradition in New Zealand you go to Little Chef, or is it a Christmas tradition in Japan you go to KFC? Which of those three is true?" I was like, I thought being logical, I thought in Mexico probably to McDonald's or something. But then I go, no, they probably go to McDonald's quite a lot. And then I was like, well, there is no Little Chef in New Zealand because that's a very British thing. I was like, is it really Japan and KFC? And that was the correct answer. And now you've just said it independently. It's like verifying what I just heard on the radio. It was really weird. Bizarre. It is a Christmas tradition in Japan to go to KFC.
Yeah, and I remember it when I was in primary school, so between P3 and P6, the only time I was in Japan. My sister and I, we collected KFC coupons leading up to Christmas. And once you had enough of these coupons, KFC gave you these wine glasses, customized wine glasses with Colonel Sanders' face. And I don't know, it changed color when various temperature liquid went in. And I remember fighting over that glass. I don't know if we still have it in a house in Japan,
Oh, that
but
is
I remember
incredible.
we were fighting so much. My mom and dad had to accumulate even more coupons so there would be two of these glasses at home. It's just madness. And we're not a Christian country. It's a very secular shopping,
Mm.
festivity rather than anything else. But Christmas in Tanzania is a lot different. It's a lot more spiritual.
I can imagine.
Um, so Merry Christmas in Kiswahili, the Tanzanian language, is Christmasy Njema. Njema means
Gemma.
like merry or good, but Christmas is not a different word at all. And they're very religious in Tanzania, and they have a lot of singing and joy coming out of it for all the right reason. The baby Jesus is arriving. But in Japan, nah, just KFC, please.
And yeah, since you said it in Swahili, I'm going to say in Chichewa it is Krisimasi ya bueno.
Ya
Krisimasi ya bueno.
bueno.
Ya bueno. Yeah, ya bueno, because bueno is basically good. So ya bueno is very good. So Merry Christmas. Yes, I think I got that right. And all my Malawian friends are just like, you butchered that. Before I forget, Akiko, because I sometimes do, I have to ask for your word that the next guest is going to have a go at for 30 seconds. So, what would you like the next guest to talk about for 30 seconds? So, you had
Ah,
Christmas, Dan had Heatwave. What would you like to give?
Kuroshio, which is a Japanese word for the Black Sea current.
Kuroshio. Can you spell that for me?
Kuroshio. It's as you say it, Kuro, as in Kuro is
Kuro,
the
yeah.
color black, and she is Shio. Shio, Kuroshio. Kuroshio is a Japanese word for the Black Sea current in Pacific Ocean.
Oh,
Being a
wow.
geographer,
Wow. Okay, that is
is that
amazing.
mean? Is that
No,
mean?
that is got to be the most cultured word we have had in the entire run of this podcast. That is incredible. Oh yes, excellent.
So whoever's next, they're gonna be like, "Oh, that girl, she is just trouble."
Oh, bring on the trouble for all I say that. Bring on the trouble. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so now at the very end now, anybody you'd like to say hi to, any shout outs you would like to give?
I'd like to say hello to all my friends. We used to go to school in Moshi, Tanzania, and you are all around the world. I love you loads. And
Oh,
also my mom and dad who are in Japan and my sisters who are in Japan. I haven't seen you since January 2020, so hello.
oh. And Mum and Dad, konnichiwa for bringing into the world this wonderful, wonderful person. I've had an absolute delight to speak to. And how can people find you on social media, Akiko, if they want to get in touch with you?
Oh, I think it's the most obvious place would be just Twitter with my name, Miss Tomitaka. I decided not to hide my name or identity. It's just going to be too difficult. So Japanese names are easiest as you kind of say it, is as you spell it. So Miss Tomitaka, and you'll
Yep.
be able to find me. It's nothing interesting there. It's just all geography stuff. And yeah.
Everybody listening to this podcast are like, yeah, why do we want to listen to geography? What at geography
Yeah,
for?
geography stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're into climate change. Oh, I use Twitter as my CPD, as like a record of things I have
That's a
read
good
and
idea.
things I have found interesting or things I want to push to my higher pupils who would be year 6 or I'm not sure how this works in England. Is it year 11 or 12? The really old kids who are A-level kids?
Oh yeah, so down here in England, that would be year 12 and 13. Yeah.
12 and 13.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of geared towards those kids.
Perfect. Wonderful. Akiko, I've had such a load of fun talking to you and finally getting to chat to you for the podcast. And I really hope we keep in touch. And yeah, I will most certainly take you up on that offer. If I'm in Glasgow, I'm going to come and pay you a visit and we're going to do a bit of yoga on your deck, looking over the Glaswegian skyline.
You'd love it because the view is amazing. Just come even for the view.
I will. And for the company, of course.
And the company.
Oh, thank you so much, Akiko.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you had fun. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe so more stories and experiences can drop into your favourite podcast app. If you fancy being a guest or have any feedback, follow us on Twitter at coffeegeogpod and send us a DM. Or you could email coffeeandgeog@geogramblings.com. Until next time, keep geogging.